15th, 2022. We'll ask the clerk to take the roll, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Halls.
Here.
Councilmember Cura.
Present.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Wilden.
Here.
Vice Mayor Naren.
Here.
Mayor Linsky is absent.
Thank you. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, next we have a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during this summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. So, council members, do we have anything tonight? No. Mr. Corbin?
I do, Vice Mayor. Make sure I get us on the record. Vice Mayor and Council, just a couple of quick items. The Verde Valley Comic Expo is back after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. Come out and meet special guests and enjoy everything pop culture, including comics, video games, and cosplay. The Comic Expo takes place on Saturday, March 16th from 10 to 5 at the Cottonwood Recreation Center. It's only $5 to attend. Kids under 10 are free. On March 25th, a private group led by John Davidson will be hosting Cottonwood's first military stand-down to support our unsheltered veterans and to connect them with much-needed equipment and services. This event will take place primarily at the Recreation Center from 8 to 4 and will include a small ceremony at the Military Service Park from 11 to 12. On March 26th, Red Earth Theater will be hosting a community health fair at the Old Town Activity Park in conjunction with Denise Kelly of Three Kings Caspar. The event is free to attend and open from 9 to 5. On April 1st, Go Bananas will be hosting their Spring Fling Truck Thing at the Rio Verde RV Park. I couldn't say that fast. I would have messed it all up. There will be numerous food trucks, vendors, and great food for all to enjoy throughout the day from 4 to 8. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Corbin, just one question. The Comic Book Expo, I thought I heard you say Saturday, March 16th, which...
Is incorrect, isn't it? It's the 26th, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
it
just
should be the
wanted to clarify
26th because, yes, 26, ma'am.
Yes.
And the day after that is St. Patty's Day, and the
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce is hosting their monthly mixer at Three Kings Caspar. If you're interested in having some green beer, I hope they have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corbin.
Quick
All right,
question.
next on the... I'm sorry, what?
I checked on the website. I saw it on the internet. I don't think it had the time on what I looked at. I'm not positive.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Wilden, for which event? Oh, thank you. This says from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we'll get the website fixed ASAP.
Okay. Anything else? Then we move on to the call to the public. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. However, the council cannot engage in discussion regarding any item that is not officially listed on the agenda for discussion and/or action. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time period. So right now I have a few of the yellow slips that are in the back of the room. So we'll start with these. If anybody else would like to get up and speak with council, please fill out one of the yellow slips. So we'll start with Ms. O'Daniel. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Is Mayor Alinsky here?
No, he is not.
Okay, well. Mayor Alinsky and city councilors, a year ago, Time magazine published an article by Molly Ball titled, quote, "The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election," close quote. Ms. Ball wrote, quote, "There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes saying that Trump was right about the orchestrated plot to oust him." Describing the conspiracy, Ball stated, quote, "Their work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws, helped secure hundreds of millions in funding, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time," close quote. The conspiracy involved, quote, a well-funded cabal of powerful people working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information." Close quote. The conspiracy included such players as Planned Parenthood, George Soros-funded MoveOn.org, Marxist Black Lives Matter, and State Department and Intelligence Community Operative Norm Eisen, whose scariest moment, his words, of the entire election was when Michigan's Republican legislature considered sending Trump delegates to defeat a blatantly rigged vote in Detroit. Under Donald Trump's America First policies, the U.S. was energy independent, gasoline was $2 a gallon, America's respected foreign policy dictated a free Taiwan and a Russia who would not try to destroy a smaller sovereign nation. But America First was not in the globalists' playbook. The massive use of mail-in ballots played a key role in the steal. A study in Pennsylvania of voter rolls matching public obituaries revealed that more than 8,000 confirmed dead voters successfully cast mail-in ballots. In Georgia, the estimated 12,000 votes cast by deceased individuals almost exactly equaled the Biden victory margin in that state. In Arizona, the forensic audit revealed 284,412 corrupt or missing ballot images and 9,041 more ballots returned than sent. Imagine that. If we do not have accurate and fair elections, we do not have a country. Mail-in voting laws need to be obliterated altogether by the Arizona State Legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Ed Chenoweth.
Madam Vice Mayor,
Welcome.
council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak once again. I went to meeting number 5 of Mr. Tripp's meetings that he had, and it's a wonderful time for me because it wasn't me getting 3 minutes and then 2,000 noise bombings, excuse me. But the first guy who talked, who was from Pine Shadows, it was just wonderful to hear him talk, and he went for about 15 minutes. And, he said the obvious. But he also said something about 2 minutes into it that I don't think Mr. Tripp picked up on immediately, but he said, if by chance you would like to go in that back room there and leave the chair there, we'll talk to the chair and this brick wall behind you there. And I don't think Mr. Tripp knew what he was talking about, but most of us did. And by the way, he represented not only himself, but hundreds of people, the whole mobile home manufacturers association, or, bunch of M's in that word, whatever it is. So in canvassing my neighborhood, a lot of patterns came out. And one was that there was some people who were, very concerned, and that'll be here on the 29th. There seemed to be a few patterns amongst those who were on your side on this issue. And one of them was that there was about 10% of the homes that I went to, and there, there's lots of retired people here. They're not in Walmart listening to ping, ping, ping all day. They want some peace and quiet at home. And, but a couple of them, they just knock on the door and, does the plane noise bother you? Huh? Does the plane noise bother you? No, but I'm deaf. And there was, several of those, so they're on your contingent there too. We got the deaf, and there was another guy that I just can't wait to tell you about. He was had all the trappings. He had the Trump-Pence signs up now years afterwards, right? I figured I'll go up, might be interesting. And I'll have you know that those people there on January 6th were the greatest patriots, apparently, if we can trust this guy. Tremendous patriots. You know, they came from Montana with their facial hair from their cabins, and they just happen to have that bear spray. They're from Montana, you know. And I just wish you could hear all the things that he said. Wow, that was 3 minutes. Okay. I was just getting started. But the deaf and the insurrectionists are on your side. Thank you.
And next we have Michael Macedo.
Good evening. I'm not high-tech. I just didn't get my printer to communicate with my laptop, so here I am. I'm going to talk about that old subject, critical race theory, but you can call it social environmental learning, because that's what the teachers are calling it these days. And I know you're thinking, well, why are you talking to the council about this? That's a school board issue. But it's not really, because you're supposed to represent the community. A contingent of you went to the Verde Valley Medical Center when they talked about a mandate in firing people that didn't get their vaccine. And that wasn't none of your business because it's a private entity. But you went there to explain to them the economic impact that would have on employees. You were involved in the events that the city manager was talking about earlier today. You go to those things, you represent the city as our representatives. Some people call you leaders, but there's other things you do where you communicate with the community, and the community communicates with you. And so, critical race theory is something that's happening in our school districts. It's happening in our communities, and it impacts everyone. I was here 2 months ago, I think, roughly, and you had you brought a parade of new hires coming in here. And I know your HR people can't ask them about their wokeness, but you can check their social media and see their wokeness and their impact on the kids that they're going to. Some of the people were hired to be in the library. Some of the people were hired to be with Parks and Rec. They were all former California residents, and they were all under 30. Now, if you simply look at the cross-section of the people you hired, I would hope that you would continually watch closely at these employees to see what their impact is at the library and at the Parks and Recreation. I want to close with a quote. This is from an individual that coordinates the Verde Valley Yavapai Democratic meetings monthly. And recently you spoke along with the mayor. You handled it rather well, kept the lingo kind of neutral and bipartisan, nothing political about it. But I spoke with the individual that coordinated that meeting. She does advertising for that whole organization, and I researched who she was, and she publishes a personal biography on Nextdoor. Dang. I'm going to read it. You can stop. You can throw me out if you want me to. My name is blank. I left it blank. I'm an author and data analyst working for the national nonprofit devoted to education advocacy and training members to take public leadership roles to improve education.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Sounds pretty
Macedo.
normal. I am also a disabled, this is the key. I'm also a disabled chronic pain patient,
Mr. Macedo.
comma, queer, comma,
Madam Vice Mayor, you
trans
can
and
temporarily
genderqueer, comma,
adjourn the meeting, and we can turn
and
off the
Trekkie
cameras if you
and
wish.
cat lover, and a fantasy and erotica
Well-
writer.
In fairness to everybody else who spoke and quit, we could do that if we need to. Thank you, Mr. Macedo. Okay, was there anybody else who wanted to address the council during the call to the public tonight? If not, we'll close the floor to the public. So next on our agenda is the monthly financial report for November of 2021. Council, did we have any questions or comments about the financial report? Now, as always, it's very detailed and very well put together, so thank you. Then we move on to approval of the minutes for the work session of December 14th, 2021, and regular meetings of January 4th, 2022, and February 15th of 2022.
Got a
If there's-
question.
do you- Certainly.
Did you get my email about the mayor's votes?
No, I did not. We're having problems with the email.
So I did send an email on one of those. It was a regular meeting of January 4th. When I look at that, it shows all the mayor's votes as being no. I'm pretty sure all those votes should have been a yes.
I will double check those and correct them.
Okay. That's all I saw.
Okay.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, I think
If
so.
there- All right, so I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the work session of December 14th, 2021, regular meetings of January 4th, 2022, and February 15th, 2022, with the correction as noted on the record.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we'll move on to unfinished business. We have one item there, ordinance number 711, adopting by reference the document titled Changes to the City of Cottonwood Zoning Ordinance dated April 14, 2022, second and final reading.
Madam Vice Mayor, staff is here to answer questions if you have any. We did not receive any other input or comments or questions, so it stands as presented at the last time. But again, our planning and zoning director is here, community development director is here somewhere. I thought I saw. There he is. If you have any questions.
Okay, Council, do we have any questions or comments or discussion?
With,
Okay.
Madam Vice Mayor, Council, with the correction staff noted last time about the usable versus meaningful open space, that definitional change.
Have there been any other public comments?
Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember Henry, no.
Motion?
Sure.
I move to adopt ordinance 711.
Second.
Okay, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse,
Yes.
Councilmember Currat,
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
Yes.
Councilmember Weldon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Naren.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. And could you read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 711, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, adopting by reference a document titled Changes to the City of Cottonwood Zoning Ordinance dated April 14th, 2022. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next we have the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. And I'll just read these out here in a second. So we have item number 1 is a contract amendment change order with Westwood Professional Services, Inc. for the railroad wash breakout study. Number 2 is a purchase of 2 generators for the Yuma and Upper 5 well sites. And number 3 is a new liquor license application submitted by Ryan W. Anderson, agent for Caduceus Cellars, for a Series 013 Farm Winery liquor license for Caduceus Cellars to be located at 760 North Verde Heights Drive. Is there a member of the council or the public that would like an item pulled? Okay. Then I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, new business. Item number 1 tonight is award of contract to Superior Tank Company for the purchase of a water storage tank for Quail Canyon number 1 well site. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Tom Weber. I'm the Utilities Director. And the item you have before you is, as you stated, the award of a contract to Superior Tank for the purchase of a water storage reservoir for Quail Canyon 1. Normally this would be in our consent agenda, but because of the one issue we had when we went out for bid, we thought it was best to put it on new business for transparency's sake. The issue is that we went out, we set a set time for all bids to be submitted to the city by. And the only bid we received was from Superior Tank, but it came in 2 hours after our scheduled deadline. We went back to Superior Tank. Superior Tank provided proof that they had indeed actually mailed it, guaranteed overnight delivery, 3 days or 4 days prior to the actual date of closing of the bids. So with the fact that they had provided us with proof that they had actually submitted this bid, even though the Global Logistics Systems, who they had used to actually make the delivery of their submittal, we went ahead and felt that it was, and also given the fact that we didn't receive any other bids, that we should go ahead and award them the contract.
Okay, council, do we have any questions for?
Just answer, I was just checking to see if it was legal.
We're good.
Okay, any discussion? I'm going to apologize, I'm having a little trouble scrolling through this tablet. That's not my normal tablet to find what I'm looking for. Sure, thank you.
I move to award a contract in the amount not to exceed $330,000 to Superior Tank Company for the purchase and installation of a 285,000-gallon bolted steel potable tank at the Quail Canyon #1 website.
Second.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse.
Yes.
Councilmember Curot.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Neri.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is consideration of reclassifying the transportation manager position from a range 29 to a range 31. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, HR Director, and I'm here tonight to discuss the reclassification of our transportation manager position from a range 29 to a 31. As most of you know, our previous transportation manager left employment with the city towards the end of July 2021. Since then, we've not been able to fill that position. We've recruited for it 4 times. 2 of those recruitments have ended in an offer that was accepted and then later declined due to financial reasons. So although reclassifying the position might not solve all of our recruiting issues, because recruitment is an issue across the board in all positions right now, we feel like the feedback that we've gotten from our applicants and selected candidates so far warrant us looking at the financial situation of this particular position. So moving this position from a range 29 to a 31 is about a 10% increase. Since we haven't filled the position, this year's budget is pretty much not going to be impacted, as we had 1 month of salary for this position spent in this budget year, and Rudy has been our transportation manager in the meantime. So we're hoping that this will help us fill this difficult to recruit position. In addition, just to be transparent, some of the changes that Sedona has made with their trail system has impacted our staffing at transit significantly, which is part of the reason we also really need to get a transportation manager on board so we can hopefully help some of those issues. So finally, just to note, ADOT grant funds do fund this position at 80%, so the city is responsible for 20%. So any increase we have to this position is offset partially by ADOT's funding. So with that, I'm open to any questions that you have.
Madam Vice Mayor,
Yes.
if I can just ask one quick question about the
course.
grant funds. How long is that grant for, or do we anticipate that the funds will be available to us?
We apply for the grant every year, and they have a 2-year cycle. I'm looking to Kirsten, but I think they've always funded our transit program, so it's pretty reliable funding source.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I can ask for clarification, I think our HR director was being kind, but at least one of them directly said housing was the issue.
Yes.
And the other one I thought also said something about housing, but I can't remember. But at least one of them, it's related to not being able to find affordable.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that seems to be a recurring theme for us lately, but we're working on that. Do we have any other questions?
No, it sounds logical, and I'm assuming that you've looked at any possible other way to deal with this problem, so I'm on board.
It also seems reasonable to me at this point. Again, I'm still having trouble finding that, so I'd entertain a motion if there's no other discussion.
Make a motion. I move to approve the reclassification of the transportation manager position from range 29 to range 31.
Second. Councilmember Hulse made the motion and Vice Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Halls,
Yes.
Councilmember Cura,
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Naren.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you.
Number 3 is presentation, discussion, and direction. I'm sorry, was there a resolution to read in that?
For the reclassification, no.
I didn't think so. Okay, sorry. Again, presentation, discussion, and direction to staff regarding a request from Terra Realty and Management, Inc. for a land lease option and other city financial support for a low-income affordable housing tax credit project.
Madam Vice Mayor, Shannon Boone, our housing manager, that is our employee, but is also an employee of Sedona, is going to give tonight's presentation, and I'll just beat her a punch a little bit. So the plan tonight is to seek direction from council on this project. We had timing issues with being able to get a completed lease and options for council, so we're really going to be seeking direction, and then I believe the city clerk has tentatively scheduled next Thursday at noon for a possible special session if directed by council. She's not nodding her head or anything. I can't read her, but I
No,
believe it's next Thursday.
I have not contacted council yet, but that works for them. I was waiting to hear if we,
So once again,
going to
Mr.
move
Corbin jumped the gun,
forward.
but we're looking at next Thursday at noon if we receive direction tonight that council is interested in moving forward. It'll depend on the outcome of the meeting, but with that, I'll turn it over to our housing manager.
Good evening.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, councilors, Shannon Boone, Housing Manager. We're here tonight for discussion and direction regarding the redevelopment of the Verde Plaza apartments and the city participation in that project. Of course, located at 195 South 7th Street, as you see here. The complex was built in 1983, consists of 52 units currently. Only 38 of those are occupied right now due to code violations and the condition of the property. A developer, Terra Realty and Management, has proposed acquiring the property in its current state, fully renovating the existing complex and adding 18 units of new 3- and 4-bedroom units. The developer, Terra, has proposed acquiring the property in its current state and achieving all of this renovation without displacing the existing tenants. Additionally, all 70 units, when the project is complete, will be affordable to families at or below 60% of the area median income. As a reminder, the Verde Valley Housing Needs Assessment found that 38.9% of Cottonwood households meet the definition of low income. 50% of all renter households in Cottonwood are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their household income in rent. And Cottonwood is facing a projected shortage of, at that time, they estimated 611 affordable units by 2024. We do also know that the affordable housing project at Aspen Ridge Apartments, the tax credits are expiring there, and the affordability period is ending this year. So that's 95 units of housing that are now converting to market rate, putting us over 700 units short of affordable housing. You can see here the site where the two new buildings are proposed. The current development, do I have a pointer on here?
Right in the middle, Shannon.
Okay. The current development is here on this parcel. There's an adjacent parcel that's currently vacant that's owned by the apartments. So the two new units would be built on there. As we'll discuss later, there is a city adjacent parcel which is here along this property line. Tara has a great deal of experience in projects such as this, including distressed USDA properties such as Verde Plaza. This property that you see here, the Castle Country Apartments in Price, Utah, was built by the same developer that originally built the Verde Plaza apartments. You can kind of see here, I apologize, the before picture is not that great, but you can see some of the differences in this project when it was renovated include the addition of the covered parking. There's a new roofing here, as you can see, in fact, a totally new roof line on this building. New windows, fenced-in patio areas for each unit, the elimination of these kind of through-the-wall air conditioning units to a more modern air conditioning system, new fencing. The interiors also fully renovated. And you can see here some of the new amenities that were added to that site, which include a community room, playground, bike racks, lighting, landscaping, pavement, and fencing. For Terra to acquire the project and achieve this level of renovation and affordability, they must receive an award of low-income housing tax credits, or LIHTC. LIHTC is a highly competitive process. The developers can only apply annually, which is one of the reasons that we're kind of in a rush to get this done. Applications are due April 1st. Last year, well, and this year actually, the state has already spelled out that only 3 projects will be awarded in the balance of the state or the rural areas outside of the 2 major metros. The tax credits are awarded based on a 200-point scoring rubric, and there are 15 points that can be awarded for local support. So in order to get those 15 points, the city participation would have to consist of a minimum of $250,000 contributed to the project. That can be in the form of fee waivers or a grant or a loan. And we can determine that form at a later time if the tax credits are awarded. In this case, the developer also needs an option to lease the adjacent city-owned parcel that we discussed. The maximum rent on that parcel that's allowed by the program is $2,000 a month. It actually doesn't need to be leased, but we'll get into that in just a second here. So we'll provide an option to lease, which would expire in 6 months. And ideally, the council will review that lease option and the draft lease next week for approval. So this slide shows you the city-owned parcel here, the middle parcel where the 2 new units will be built, and the existing development here. The challenge that we have is this middle parcel is zoned R2, so it will only allow 11 units and not the 18 additional that would help the project score better and cash flow better. The application requires that the developer have the zoning he needs when he applies for the project to build the proposed project. In order to achieve that, we would provide a lease option for the 650 East Aspen Street for him to submit as part of the project during application. However, we would later ask to rezone this middle parcel that's R2 to R3, and then the adjacent parcel would no longer be needed. Either way, there is no plan to build on the city-owned parcel. I think it's worth noting, the city-owned parcel is zoned R3, as is the parcel across the street here where the police station is, and this parcel here. These are commercial. This is a planned area development. The density is almost equal to R3, and the existing parcel is zoned R2 as well. So what we're looking for at this time is some discussion regarding the terms of the option to lease and approval for the $250,000 city contribution to the project. The developer is here if you have questions as well, or I'm happy to take questions now.
All right, council? Okay.
If we made that temporary lease a permanent lease, how many more units would they be able to build?
With this project, that is not ideal. It would actually not benefit the scoring and might make it not possible to do the renovation and the 2 additional buildings. So the way it's planned is kind of maximizing the scoring. It is possible that at a later date, we could work with another developer or even this developer to add more units on that site.
Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember Crott, we are being courted by a couple different developers, builders on that property for workforce housing. Like Shannon said, the current developer that's here today has shown some interest. We have a 3D printing group that's interested in putting some stuff there, and I think also, not our favorite, but a couple manufactured mobile home people have contacted us for that property. So I think I like that there's a 6-month option on this, so we don't tie this land up forever. But after this project is done, if they get the grant, if it works out, I think we'll be back with council for direction on setting up an RFP or some process for evaluating what the city wants to do with that land. But I think we will be back before you know it to talk about the future of that land.
So the option to lease, is the option just in place so that they can get their approval?
Yes.
Is there no plans to actually exercise that option?
No.
Madam Vice Mayor, sorry, Councilmember Matthews, 2 things I'd like to say. I want to be very clear. This is a real lease. So let's say the rezone did not come through for some reason. You didn't approve the rezone, or P&Z didn't recommend approval of the rezone. This lease, they have to have the land. They have to be able to fit the 2 buildings on a piece of property. It cannot fit in that R2 zone. So if for some reason that were not to be rezoned, then this lease would allow them to continue with the project. That's part of our transparency. I just want to be very honest and upfront that while they have no plans to do so, the lease would require us to allow them to move forward with this project if for some other reason the rezone weren't to go through.
Okay, so either the lease will not have to be exercised and they can do what they want, or if the rezoning doesn't go right, we will actually initiate the lease and receive $2,000 a month on that lease. Okay, I mean, I'd buy a house all day long for $250 and lease it for $2,000 a month. But, that sounds good. I mean, I'm not going to be here on Thursday. I'm not available, but I love this. I mean, this is just what the doctor ordered. We need affordable housing for people in Cottonwood, and we need more housing in Cottonwood. So, all for it.
2 questions, both fun to answer. First one is, Ron, if you don't mind, where are we going to get the $250,000?
Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember Wilden, great question. So we have the CARES replacement funds, if I can use those words, from Kirsten. We're actually proposing moving that into a housing line item, so we can call it the housing budget for next year. But we still have plenty of money in there that we could take that from. Our recommendation is probably a loan so that we can replenish that fund. Because the goal, I know council's goal is to create a reoccurring fund, not one that has to be supplemented regularly from the general fund. But again, we'll come back at a future day. But we have the ability to write that cash from that. I believe this year, Kirsten, the money's in our grant fund spot. So we have money, the ability, the budget authority, at your direction to spend that money on this to write the check if we had to. But we do plan to come back if they get the grant later for clear direction from council on the method and the means you want to actually make that happen. But we have the budget capacity.
And that money has not been earmarked already for anything else?
Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember Wilden, that's correct. So we still have the $400,000 set aside for the down payment assistance program. We have money set aside to pay for the housing manager contract with Sedona, and then we still would have enough in the 250 to cover this if this is what council so desired.
Second question, probably for the developer. What is this going to, this is almost impossible to answer. What is this going to do to the people that are living there now? Are they going to be out of a home as well, and we have to find a place for them, or how is that going to transpire?
My name is Scott Nibelak, and I'm representing Terra Realty. So thank you very much for taking the time to consider this tonight, and thank you for Mr. Corbin, all his hard work, and Ms. Boone to kind of put this together, because it's been a lot of work. To answer your specific question, because, and it's very important to understand this particular project, the number one lien position on it is from the United States government. So anything that happens underneath that, as far as a rehabilitation or actually any kind of changing of habitat, is done by the National Rehabilitation Act. So every person that's there currently will be, they call temporarily displaced, and then they will be moved back in their own unit. And part of the development budget is to actually allow them to do that. So we pay for the moving, we pay for any changeovers of utility costs. You know, oh, you have to hook up your cable, yeah, it's $50, we'll pay for that. We pay for storage, we pay for all of those items. So we make sure that, first of all, there's no issue for the particular tenant. And ideally what we like to do is move tenants from the site onto the site at the same time. So in other words, like right now, there's many of the units there that are just, they're not even accessible because of the second floor issues. So what we would do is we would basically take the people that are there, move them into units once they're rehabbed, and then do the same thing. They basically kind of like leapfrog around. That's the ideal thing to do. We have other strategies as well that we've used in the past that have been very successful, but that's the number one. You know, they don't have to leave. If the kids are in school, they don't have any kind of issues. They don't have to, you know, have any issues with their jobs, getting to and from, if they already have a transportation, you know, worked out. So that's ideally what we would like to do. Building the new units really allows us to do this, you know, because we can build a new building and then move people from the existing buildings right in there, and then be able to then rehab those units that are then empty. So it's usually we don't have new buildings to kind of do this with. We have to kind of leapfrog in the ones that we currently have.
How about their rent? Would their rent go up? I suspect not.
The rents may go up because we have to make it cash flow. Again, this is a very unusual kind of project in that it's not necessarily even a free market LIHTC project, where if I came in and it was not a USDA project, then as the rents, if they allow me to raise rents, I can raise rents. I can raise rents as much as I are allowed to by the state as it goes up. With a USDA project, it's a bit different, and because they're focused on basically a zero income, because the U.S. government doesn't want to spend more money than they have to, right? So if the project makes more money, if the expenses are lower 1 year, perhaps, then the rents may actually go down. But just because the LIHTC rents go up doesn't mean that we can raise rents on the people on this particular project, because it is a USDA project. So it basically comes out, yes, we'll have to make sure that the fiduciary funds, to make sure that the air conditioners when they go out in 6 or 7 years, or the stairs when they go out in 15 years, that fund is fully funded from each one of those units, but it's not a usury type of situation as far as we can get the maximum amount of rents. It's basically just enough to cover what needs to be there. The other element of this is that half, and again, I'm working with the USDA right now because I've got a great relationship with them, but basically 26 units currently have rental assistance. And that means that once a tenant qualifies for that, they don't pay any more than 30% of their income toward rent or utilities. Because the government will basically come in and say, you make $10,000 a year, okay, you can't pay more than $3,000 a year for your rent, right? You make $20,000, you can't pay more than $6,000. It's a sliding scale, doesn't penalize somebody for making more money, but it definitely supports those very, very at-need populations in your community. Does that answer your question? Yes.
So, Madam Vice Mayor and Mr. Nyblack, you can please correct me if I'm wrong, but to remind council, this is the project that is in municipal court and under court supervision because there were building and safety code violations. Our fire department said unless it was life-threatening, they weren't going to go up the stairs. So they are currently moving tenants. They had some vacant units. They consolidated into buildings while they were doing the improvements. Unfortunately, the improvements have been stalled because there's been a dispute between the owner and the contractor. But this is a project that council is familiar with for that reason.
If I may, I don't know the protocol here. Can I just say a couple of things?
Sure.
The reason that I approached Ron and Shannon was that under the code of Arizona, they only have so much money, just like you only have so much money. Unfortunately, just like I only have so much money, right? Nothing's unlimited, even in tax credits. And so they have to prioritize who gets these tax credits. And so they make a rule list every year called the Qualified Action Plan, or the QAP, and that is what comes in this scoring element. Somebody asked before, well, what happens if we get the option, does that help us score better? Yes, it does. It gives us 5 more points. And the more points we have, the higher we are on that list. The highest scoring person, they get funded. The second highest, they get funded. All the way down until there's nobody else there. And one of the things in there is they'd like to see community participation. And that's the reason for the $250,000. The project itself will probably be north of $20 million. So it's not as if this will make or break it, but it's one of those check marks that Arizona Housing says, does the community really want this? Are they going to stand behind it? Is this a community that really wants to do this? And that is why they put that in there. So I don't necessarily need your $250,000 to make the project work, but the state says that I get 5 points if you do that. So that's just so you know. I've worked in low-income housing for about 12 years now. I've been in development for 30 years. I am looking forward to hopefully being successful with this application and being a steward for this project for the next 30 years.
And council, I think it might be 10 this year, but I punched my button to say the last LIHTC project the city was involved in was the Highland Square project. And that developer, we did work with them, and I think they were awarded in their second application cycle. But we did provide the opportunity for a repayable loan that the developer wound up not drawing. But they got the points, got the tax credits, built the project. It's a wonderful, beautiful project. So that's our experience. The one before that, and I'm not sure that was a LIHTC project, but we lent some money that we never saw again. So there's always that risk.
I would, one more thing, I would say that it's very important to understand that all of these items would be conditional on winning, because if there is no award, then there's kind of no reason for any of us to go forward on that. So,
That was actually my question. So is Tara's purchase of the property contingent on the grant successful award?
absolutely. I do not want to own the project in its current state.
And back on that point, is there something in the court order that can be done? Because this is just another issue. I understand there's a construction funding issue between the owner and the builder, but is there some recourse with the court to get that back on track?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Henry, we would approach it as this moves forward. We will communicate with the court and let them know if there's to be a transfer of ownership, because I think there are both civil and criminal issues involved, and the city did proceed personally against some of the principals in the current owner. But we would advise the court and let the court know. All of the city's action with respect to the municipal court is simply to achieve compliance and safety and not to displace low-income individuals. So we'd be able to navigate that as we move forward.
Any other questions? Comments? Well, I think most of you know that I work and I manage low-income properties here in Cottonwood. Currently, I manage Mingus Point Apartments, and I was involved with Highland Square, and still am kind of in a supervisory capacity. But so I understand, based on the length of our wait lists, how much we need low-income housing in Cottonwood. And we are losing Aspen Ridge, which is a significant number of low-income housing units. And they are in the process of that whole 3-year conversion. So they're not moving any more low-income people in. That's already happened. And I understand that next year, when the last 20 or so move out, then there'll be a big rush to rehab those and lease them out at market rates. So if we can save some units, I think that's great. Right now, that property is, in my opinion, it's a huge eyesore because it is run down. It looks terrible. The residents there have been kind of put through the ringer by the current management company by trying to close it down and make everybody move. So if we can help the residents there and the whole community have something nicer to look at as well, then I'm all for this kind of a thing. And rehabbing a property like that would be a tremendous boost for the community, I think.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Should I sit down now?
You may,
Okay.
but thank you. So, Shannon, do you have the direction you were looking for? Do you, Mr.
Madam Vice
President?
Mayor, if I can just clarify, so we'll come back based on Councilmember Matthews okay with the $2,000 a month lease. It sounds like you're okay with the 6-month expiration of that lease option. You're okay, at least in theory, with the $250,000 support that we'll figure out at a later date. Is there any other major concerns or issues that council wants to provide us today, or maybe Mr. Horton wants a clarification?
I kind of like the idea of that $250,000 being a loan rather than just money going out, so that we can replenish that fund and continue to use it to help, with affordable housing.
And right now, as we speak, I'm more comfortable with that for gift clause reasons. I'm not sure it would be a problem to make it a grant, but we are working with a private developer, and we would have to do some more analysis and have some more discussion about what the conditions of a grant would be. It's simpler, it's cleaner to do it as a loan. And I think I heard in Councilmember Matthews' comments that maybe if we can sort of get this past ADOH as part of the application, we would make the option not only time limited, but contingent on the failure to obtain what looks like, as zoning cases go, a fairly simple zoning case. So the right to lease would not arise unless the zoning was applied for and didn't go through.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that scenario happening.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, not only does these buildings need this, but Cottonwood needs to keep as much of that affordable low-income housing as possible. So whatever it takes. I don't see anything there that's objectionable.
Madam Vice Mayor, I think we have direction, and we'll bring back something. Again, Mary Ann will confirm with you guys to make sure we have a quorum. Because I know that, I believe the mayor indicated he'll probably have to call in, but he should be able to make the meeting. But if we have more than one or two of you that can't make it, we'll have to look for another date and time. But Mary Ann, our city clerk, will be in contact very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have consideration of authorizing the city clerk to review and approve special event, extension of premises, and fair festival liquor license applications.
Madam Vice Mayor, council members, as you know, special event, extension of premises, and fair festival liquor license applications have historically been brought before the council for your consideration of approval or denial. We recently became aware that other cities and towns around us, their city clerk or police chief have been given the authority to review and recommend approval of these applications without having to bring them to their council. This would be a good thing for the applicants because more often than not, they're not aware of the time period it takes to bring these applications before the council. And also the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control, they require the application be submitted to them 10 days prior to the event. So I did some investigation and inquired of the surrounding communities which city or town clerks were given the authority to approve such applications, and Clarkdale, the town of Clarkdale, their police chief was designated to approve and sign off on these applications. But Sedona and Camp Verde, their city and town clerk were given the authority to sign off on these applications without having to bring them to council, therefore saving the applicant time and council also. As you know, our last meeting, we had 4 or 5 of these applications on the agenda for council reviews, which requires the time to input the application and communication forms into our agenda management and then bring them before council. So I'm just bringing this before you to see if you would like to give authority to the city clerk, designate me as the person for the city, or if you want the police chief to do it, authority to review and approve or recommend approval, because the ultimate approval lies with the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control.
Okay.
Seems to be much more efficient. I don't know that we've ever had a problem. Have we ever had a problem?
I've only been here 3 years. I'm sorry, Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember Wilden. I've only been here 3 years. I think you guys have pulled one in those 3 years where you just had a couple questions. But I can't remember any others that in the 3 years, I haven't seen anyone denied. And again, it was just one question. But
Yeah.
Mary Ann's been here 30 years, so
Well,
she
that's
probably-
also my recollection, that we pulled one off the consent agenda to ask some questions, and then we approved it afterwards, so. Marian, do you have any other history that we don't have about problems with these kind of applications?
No,
Okay.
the only problem we've had is that people are bringing them in at the last minute and can't get them on the agenda in time for their event when they become upset.
So this would be much more efficient for our businesses as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And just so we're clear, these are not new applications. These are existing license holders that just would like to have a special event or an extension of premises for a limited period of time, correct?
No, not all of them are liquor license holders. They're for, like recently, the city applied for a special event liquor license for the the run that's going to be happening because there's going to be liquor served. All new liquor licenses and remote tasting room liquor licenses have to come before the council.
And I completely agree. This is, to me, is an inefficiency that we should address because, again, these are very routine. We don't even really have decision-making authority apart from a recommendation to approve or deny to the department. So I think it's a great idea, and thanks for bringing it forward. Ready for a motion?
I'll just say, if you want this on your plate, it's all yours.
And with that, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to designate the city clerk as the designated representative of the city of Cottonwood to review and approve all special event, extension of premises, and fair festival liquor licenses submitted to the city for approval.
Second?
Motion was made by Councilmember Henry and seconded by Councilmember Matthews. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Halls?
Yes.
Councilmember Currat?
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nairn?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have claims. I would make a motion to approve the claims and adjustments.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded the adjournment? I did. Okay, thank you.
Sorry. We all get really excited at that point.